I'm Carolyn Napier, and this is part 2 of the Fourpole Creek assessment. The water quality of Fourpole Creek. What I found from the West Virginia DEP website was that it was last sampled last November, November 1st, 2017 at mile 0.1. This is a chart I found on the West Virginia DEP site that shows water quality standards and how they are rated according to the results. The ones that stuck out to me for Fourpole were the bacteria and the metals. This is the results from last year's sampling. If you look at the E. coli and the fecal coliform, they are higher than the standard or the good quality rating. Fecal coliform is in the poor section and the E. coli is in the marginal with 309 colonies per 100 milliliter. And also some of the metals like the potassium and sodium are above the 1 milligrams per liter value for the good rating, which I put over here in this slide. The ones that stuck out to me just based on the results that I found on the West Virginia DEP's website. I don't really have a source stating this particularly, just how I interpreted the results. Possible sources of contamination, and some of these are also covered by some permits by the West Virginia DEP and even the city of Huntington. There's a construction stormwater runoff. There's a bunch of package plants, also known as wastewater treatment plants. I found a permit for some underground fuel tanks for groundwater remediation, industrial stormwater runoff permits, and another one that I've noticed, I don't really find a source, but I am aware of it, is some of the accidental spills. I know over summer there was a significant spill from Cabell Huntington Hospital that leaked a lot of diesel into Fourpole. And also on Interstate 64, a lot of the wrecks that happen up there with the tractor trailers, when they leak that diesel, it drains down into the Fourpole watershed. So again, the West Virginia DEP permits, there's the construction stormwater permit, the multi-sector / industrial stormwater permit, the wastewater treatment plants, groundwater remediation. Those are all permits that I found on the West Virginia DEP's website. They're located in the watershed. And another one I just wanted to add in there that I'm aware of is the MS4 Municipal Separate Storm Sewer that the City of Huntington has. The City of Huntington has an outfall located over by Ritter Park on, I think it's 12th Avenue and 8th Street, that they monitor twice a year for pollutants. And then they are also doing their part to reduce pollutant runoffs into Fourpole as well, which I'll touch on a little bit here in a minute. The construction stormwater permit, I found a few of these where Connect Park is. I guess it's closer to I-64 as you go away from Huntington, where they do a lot of they've been building that little area up. The West Virginia DEP regulates sediment-laden stormwater flowing into the waters of the state from discharges associated with construction activity. The stormwater runoff from the construction sites can pick up the pollutants like sediment, debris, and chemicals and can harm or kill fish or other wildlife. And it can also cause stream bank erosion. The West Virginia DEP stormwater program, the construction requires operators or construction sites that disturb 1 acre or greater to obtain the permit. And the permit will force them into doing a lot of BMPs to control erosion and sediment runoff. And also when the construction is completed, I know that a West Virginia DEP inspector will have to go out to terminate it, the permit, and they will terminate it based on if the site is stabilized properly. The other one I kind of want to touch on, it doesn't, I don't think it adds much pollutants, but City of Huntington and how they also monitor Fourpole. They have an MS4, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. It covers stormwater discharges from small, regulated, urbanized areas, such as public institutions, such as hospitals, universities, highways, within urbanized areas. City of Huntington, I know they monitor Fourpole Creek. The outfall is located at 8th Street and 12th Avenue. It's right at the white bridge that leads up to the Rose Garden. And the stormwater management program, they call that the SWAMP, has 6 measures that help to protect and restore water quality from polluted runoff. 6 measures include public education and outreach, public involvement and participation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, controlling runoff from construction sites, controlling runoff from new development and redevelopment, and pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. As we know, Fourpole Creek runs through Huntington, and Huntington does have what I mentioned earlier, the SWAMP stormwater management program plan in place, and that is actually located on the City of Huntington's website if you'd like to look at that. I'm also known, based on what they have stated in their SWAMP, that they require that any new construction or people that get the building permits through the City of Huntington also have to submit a plan for their stormwater management and sediment control. Huntington requires that for sites that are 5,000 square feet and greater. Another one, the West Virginia DEP monitors is a multi-sector stormwater permit. This is activities that take place in industrial facilities such as material handling and storage. When it's stored outside, you have the rainwater and the snowmelt that can come into contact with these materials, and that will pick up pollutants and drain them into the local streams and storm sewer systems. There's a lot of different sectors that the West Virginia DEP monitors, and based on what your business is, depends on what you monitor for. This is just a generic or general overview of all of the parameters that are listed in the permit, but not everybody has to test for each one of these. It just depends on what your business is and what more likely you are to have on site that could come in contact with stormwater. And there's also the groundwater remediation. I found that the Marathon gas station, the corner of 16th Street and I'm not sure the other road there, but it's right beside Baskin Robbins, Meadows Elementary. They had a groundwater remediation permit at one point. It looked like it was closed or expired based on 2 different places I went and looked on the DEP's website, so I don't know if it's actually that permit's still in place or if it has completely been closed out or if it expired. But it appeared at one point in time that these items listed were what they were monitored for. And also, I think I forgot to mention, I counted 4 package plants, the wastewater treatment plants in the Fourpole watershed, and I found 1 industrial stormwater. And there was multiple stormwater construction permits, but I know a lot of those have been closed out. But I also wanted to point out, before I forget, With the package plants, the wastewater treatment plants, even though the West Virginia DEP has a permit and that they are monitored, I know based on their operations, the person that operates these plants, sometimes they're not the greatest, or sometimes they are even abandoned. And a lot of the wastewater will drain into Fourpole without being properly treated. So I think that's a major contributor to the bacteria problem in Fourpole as well. Which I guess, here it is. I thought I already touched on it. So notice there's 4 package plants in the watershed. That's less than 50,000 gallons of discharge per day. I know these 4 package plants require tertiary treatment due to the size of the receiving stream, and tertiary treatment is just an additional form of treatment added on compared to other places. And a lot of times you see some form of a sand filter bed or a polishing pond. The parameters monitored, you have BOD, TSS, fecal, and ammonia nitrogen. Kind of want to mention a second ago about the operation and maintenance on these systems. Even though they are regulated through the West Virginia DEP, I have personally seen a lot of these plants not operate properly. And because of that, you have a lot of pollutants going into the waterway. The West Virginia DEP does regulate it, and they do go after the source, but doesn't always prevent it. And then also, just a thought I had, what kind of septic systems are on in the watershed area. Are they operating properly? I know it's a subsurface discharge covered by the health department, but my thoughts are eventually some of that has to drain into the Fourpole Creek area. Also, another thing that, based on my experience and what I've seen with the diesel spills, I've seen a lot of wrecks on the Interstate 64, especially at that overpass as you go out 16th Street toward the interstate. I've seen multiple wrecks of tractor trailers there that have punctured their fuel tanks, and diesel has drained straight into the Fourpole. The West Virginia DEP does enforce proper cleanup of the site and control measures when this does happen, but there's always a lag between the wreck and when a cleanup crew can get there and can contain the spill. Same thing with the Cabell Hospital over summer. They had a spill of diesel that went into the water, into Fourpole. And of course, by the time you detect it and then just figure out who it is and get environmental crews out to stop it or contain it and clean it up, a lot of that's already drained into the waterway. And I put frequent occurrence about Interstate 64 there because it's not a scientific fact. I've just noticed. I am a local to Huntington. I have seen multiple wrecks on that area and the drainage. And from work experience, I've seen it as well. So frequent occurrence, put 4+. It's not really a scientific fact. That's just based on my estimate. Also, I want to touch base on the West Virginia Stream Condition Index. This summarizes the family level identification of the microinvertebrate in the streams. I'll put a little definition in there about what they are. Small animals living among stone, logs, sediments, and aquatic plants on the bottom of the streams, rivers, and lakes. This index includes 6 biological metrics that represent elements of the structure and composition of these communities. And here are the 6 listed. And this is a table I got from the West Virginia DEP's website. I apologize. I tried to enlarge it to a certain extent so you could see it. It dates back from 2000 up to 2015. Still trying to figure out how to interpret it. This is a weak area for me. I don't know much about this kind of stuff. So this is something I really have to dig in a little more. But here's the chart I did find. And the sources, all of my information came from the City of Huntington with their MS4 program. They also have their swamp, their stormwater management plan posted on their website. They also have a thing, their annual report posted that shows what they have done according to their swamp. And something I think I did forget to mention is I do know the City of Huntington holds like little festivals or some type of event in Ritter Park to help educate the public about fecal material and picking up after your dogs and all that, where they're trying to educate the residents of the pollutants that are going into Fourpole. But all that is available on the City of Huntington's website. Everything else came from the West Virginia DEP. I kind of just gave their general website there because I went digging a lot and got lost doing so. And I don't think I recorded every single point of the West Virginia DEP's website that I used in this slide, but all came from there. And obviously a lot of it came from the permitting and then the watershed portion of the DEP's website.